We have directors and executive remuneration. That is another issue there, all right? Because normally some companies have gone down just because of this issue. There will be years that companies are making losses, and yet directors and top executives are still paid bonuses. Okay, so sometimes fictitious accounts are created, financial statements are created, as if the company is actually doing well, just because directors and executives want to be paid good salaries and bonuses. Okay, so it's another big issue. Should the compensation or remuneration paid to these guys be linked to, say, the performance of the company? Or it should just be a blanket check where even when the company is not actually doing well financially, they still get their allowances and bonuses and so on and so forth. So that's another big issue in corporate governance, all right? Then we've spoken about disclosure and audits. That will always remain an important issue. The fact that there should be fair presentation of accurate and fair financial statements that represent the actual financial position of the company through audited financial statements will forever be a topical issue in corporate governance. Because as outsiders, especially if it is a public company, investors will basically be looking at the financial statements to make a decision whether they want to invest in these companies or not. Once the auditors fail, first and foremost, once the executives present fake or unrealistic financial statements and auditors also fail to audit properly, then everybody is in trouble or in danger. Okay, so disclosure and proper auditing is very, very important issue in corporate governance. Protection of shareholders' rights and expectations, we've spoken much about it. Dialogue with institutional shareholders. This is becoming a major issue. As I indicated earlier, institutional shareholders are now being advised not to just invest and stay away. You know, these institutional shareholders tend to have a lot of money in public companies or listed companies. So the Cadbury Committee advises institutional shareholders to stay in touch with companies on a regular and systematic basis. All right? They shouldn't just invest and go and sleep. It is important. Most of the time, these board meetings may occur semi-annually or once in a year or quarterly and so on and so forth. So between that time, what is actually happening in the company is something that the institutional shareholders might not be aware of. But it's, in fact, even with institutional shareholders, they are shareholders. So it's annually that they will get to know, unless, of course, they have rep on boards. So the advice is that they should actively get engaged in how these companies are being managed, because they have a lot of at stake in terms of their investment in these companies. Okay. Should investors have a say in making companies socially responsible? A company socially responsible corporate citizen. All right. So this issue is coming up because, as we indicated much earlier, there is the higher tendency for management to use CSR as a tool for wasting or abusing the resources of a company. Okay, so the issue that is coming up with is that, for example, before you make a decision to make a donation for a particular CSR activity, should management actually seek the approval of investors or shareholders of the company? Should shareholders actually accept or endorse that particular decision before they can go ahead and so on and so forth? All right. So that's another issue in corporate governance. Yes, Augustine, I can see you on.
I thought it was a question, so I don't wanted to make a contribution.
Oh, okay. No, it was rhetorical anyway. Okay, so people have different. So it's an issue because there is no straightforward.
Hello, Prof.
Yes, Augustine.
Prof, I thought it was a question, so I wanted to make a contribution with reference to some experiences.
Okay, so the point I'm making is that all the issues are kind of rhetorical. All right.
Okay.
The question is also rhetorical because all the issues have like two positions. Some are actually for, some are against, and there's a discussion around those issues, all the issues. All right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is most of them are not straightforward. Unlike say audit and disclosure, that is straightforward. Some of the stuffs are things that some discussions are still ongoing. Okay. Right. So we are done with that. Please, any question, any contribution before we move to relevance of corporate governance? Any question?
Sir.
Contribution? Hey, you
Sir.
and you say, please, I say use the button.
Oh.
Or you
sir,
don't know how to use it.
Yes, unfortunately, I cannot locate where my is. So sorry for the.
Who can help him? Where is it? Where can it be found?
Go to
Sir,
reactions.
actually, I'm one of the visually impaired persons.
He's a special student.
Sorry. I didn't know. But you should have
No
informed.
problem. No problem.
And I was fighting you.
I'm actually not in this class, but I decided that I would like to join. And
why? Why did you choose to join us?
Oh, so I want to.
Thank you all.
No, bro, it's because of the way we talk about your classes. They are.
Stop lying. Stop lying.
I was in your other class. I was in your other class.
Yeah. I did. Yeah. The name. You see, the reason why I couldn't figure that out was because the name looked familiar. So I thought it was
familiar. Yes.
But Prof in his other class was strict on us.
I
remember you told us that we are not serious people.
But you were not serious.
But it's because he was serious and we weren't. So this one you can. It's a principle to get us understand what he was
saying. That's how I came back to my own center. You are strict on us, Prof. So here you being jovial is kind of scary.
Okay, that's fine. We are allowed to change our mind, isn't it? So yes. So Yazid, you wanted to say something?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So with regards to the role of the board, earlier on when some members were sharing their experiences about how some board members are appointed as just a smoke screen. I'd like to know if you, a board member, decide to accept such a role to just be a rubber stamp kind of member, and there's any fraud or anything dubious, are you immune in any way?
No.
From legal action.
So there's a close partnership. In fact, corporate governance is just like company law. Yes. Okay. So if you go to company law, there is the concept of lifting the veil. And one of the conditions under which the veil of the why even lifting the veil? Because in the ordinary course of things, the company is supposed to be separate from all other people, isn't it? All other stakeholders. So if something is happening to the company is a separate entity from the other stakeholders of the company. But once there is fraud, the veil will be lifted, and those that are actually acting on behalf of the company can personally be held liable. And one of the conditions for lifting the veil is when there is an occurrence of fraud. Okay. And if you go to the company's code 2, there are liabilities. In fact, there are whole chapters and provisions on directors. There are duties and consequences that will come if you were to engage in any malpractice or fraudulent dealings. All right. So once you accept this role and you become a rubber stamp in court, and there's any whatever, there won't be protection for you. Once the people go to court, the veil will be lifted, and all those behind the operations of the company, they will not see the company now to be a separate entity. No, they will become after you, the director, to be held accountable or held in charge. Liable, not accountable, held liable for all the fraudulent dealings and acts of the company. Yeah,
what if? Yes, then what if it's not really about fraud, but something maybe that can be termed as willful negligence, or something that you ought to have known as a board member, or you could have prevented.
Yes, yes. So you have your duties. Once you renege in those duties, okay, details of that can be found in company law. Okay, so there is close partnership, but this course is not company law. So if you pick company code, as I keep referring to, there are chapters on directors, their responsibilities and liabilities. So if you get into that, you'll clearly see the consequences and the things that you can do that will hold you liable for some punishment or some kind of consequences. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. So once you have your duties. In fact, the cardinal one is what we've just said. When I was talking about, when I mentioned the word fiduciary, I told you it was a legal term. All right. Whenever you're acting on behalf of other people, you have fiduciary responsibility. And abuse of that is an abuse of law. All right. So you have to act as though you're acting on your own behalf. If you were the one in the shoes of the person, will you have taken that particular decision? Once we realize that you were actually interested in your selfish interest, then you have breached that fiduciary duty. And that alone can hold you liable. Okay, for some form of punishments or penalties in law. Okay, Daphne.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, so the fiduciary, is it the same as the power of attorney?
No. It's totally different. Fiduciary duty means that, I think we've explained it, right? You have the responsibility to act in the best interest of the person you are representing in any particular case. Okay, the person is not there. For example, if you're a lawyer and you have a client, all right, you are in a fiduciary relationship with the person to act in the best interest of the person. So if, for example, if you then go and connive with the adversary or the person he's contending with in order for him to lose the case, you can be held liable for a breach of that fiduciary duty. All right. So whenever you stand in a position where you are acting you are supposed to act in trust for another person, then you are in a fiduciary responsibility. So it's broader than having an attorney. If you have an attorney, that responsibility is for a specific activity. And that also then puts you in that same position of having a fiduciary duty towards the person on whose behalf you are acting. Is that point clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if you have power of attorney, there is a specific power act that you are supposed to do. Okay. Yes. So you are supposed to act on behalf of the person in a specific context. But the fiduciary applies to all principal agent kind of relationship. And once you abuse that, you can be held liable. Blessing.
Yes, Prof. Thank you. Please, from what we've discussed so far, I want to ask if we could say that a business ethics could as well be a standalone issue when it comes to corporate governance, or it's embedded in the ones that are already listed here.
Can you clarify your question again? I didn't get what you said. Can you come again?
Okay, so all right. My question is if it's okay to add business ethics as one of the issues when it comes to corporate governance, or it is embedded in the ones that are already stated here. I'm asking this in terms of the 3 C's that we considered earlier when we were looking at business ethics.
Okay. What were they?
The contribution, the consequences. Hello.
Yes.
The compliance, the contribution, and the consequences.
Oh, so you're asking this question because you didn't see
Yes, so
ethics under the issues, right? Is that the case? Is your question coming from the fact that
yes,
you
so I'm
don't
asking
see-
if business ethics could as well be a standalone issue.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
yes,
see,
more like yes.
uh-huh. No, the issues that we've discussed are like the debatable stuff. I don't know whether you are getting me. Where scholars and corporate governance are actually advocating. So if it is something that is, for example, the issue about, say, CEO and chairperson duality, all right? It's an issue because some contend, there are some that still believe that the CEO should still be the chairperson of the board. And so they have raised the advantages that comes with that, okay? And others are of the view that no, it conflicts with certain basic principles of corporate governance itself, which is conflict of interest. All right. So these are kind of debatable issues or thorny areas. All right. But when you take issues about ethical, whatever practice, is fundamental, is basic. It's not something that is debatable under corporate governance. All right. So for most courses, you will only see the title corporate governance. But at the end of the day, you'll surely have some discussions on ethics, because really the ethics is embedded in corporate governance. Is it clear?
All right.
So I'm very,
Yes.
very sure that even by the time we end somewhere, you will see ethics coming in as corporate governance. But as we started, I made you to understand that those are the pillars, right? You have ethics, then you have corporate governance. Okay, then probably you have CSR. All of them are interwoven, all right? But the two pillars are, first, we'll admonish you to behave ethically, do the right things, blah, blah, blah. But we can't just leave it to your discretion and personal judgment. We'll need real laws, okay? So corporate governance, as I said, also goes with company law and law generally. All the standards, all the laws, to make sure that we are not just asking you or pleading with you to live right or do the right things, but there is also the law that will ensure that companies and businesses are properly managed. I hope that is clear.
Okay, so the ones that are issues are more like things that more, should I use the word dilemma? Like there is a conflict in thoughts.
Topical, yes, like topical issues. Okay. Yes. So debates, kind of. There are still positions that people hold.
All right.
Right. Or yes, but for some also they are not debatable, but they are issues that always have to be highlighted within the context of corporate governance. Okay, like audits and something. There was something in audits. Okay, at any point in time, when you talk about corporate governance, those things have to be highlighted, like shareholder interest, protection of shareholder interest or stakeholder interest. It will always be an issue that will be highlighted under corporate governance. All right. So the fact that we've not seen ethics,
all right, thank you,
doesn't mean ethics is not part. Okay. All right. Are we fine? Can we proceed? I just know corporate governance should be something of interest, right? Because it's something that we all have to know, really. It's applicable and the principles are relevant wherever we find ourselves. Okay, so move on to relevance of corporate governance. First one is corporate governance primarily focuses on managing corporations well. So basically it will help us to be able to manage our companies, our businesses well. Okay, if you understand and apply the principles of corporate governance, we can take for granted that companies and businesses will be managed well. Corporate governance is necessary because management typically has information edge over other stakeholders. And one of the principles of corporate governance, as we've learned this morning, is transparency. Okay, So it will help to bring all stakeholders on board. Management, because they are in charge of the day-to-day operations, they tend to have more information over other stakeholders. But corporate governance will ensure true transparency, will ensure that all stakeholders actually are placed on the same platform. Okay. Then better corporate governance is related to better company performance. So there have been empirical studies to show that there is some positive correlation between companies that employ or implement the principles of corporate governance and the performance of those companies. So that's another benefit. It will lead to better company performance. And I think from our discussions so far, it should be obvious that if you were to follow the tenets of corporate governance, your company should perform well. Okay. Then the next point is that when investors are assessing companies for potential investment, majority of them will look at how well the company is being governed in terms of operating by the corporate governance principles and standards that we've already discussed. Okay. So they want to find out, do you have a board and how credible is that particular board? We've just explained that. The small screen issue that came up. All right. Is it just people that you pick to say yes to you and so on and so forth? All right. Adapting rules of transparency in dealing with investors and creditors will benefit everyone and assist to prevent systematic banking crisis. So corporate governance also is very important, normally in the banking sector especially. World all over, all right, all over the globe, most of these crises happen in the banking sector. That is where the money is. That is where most of the fraudulent dealings occur, and so on and so forth. So to avoid systematic banking crisis, banks must uphold highly the principles and tenets of good corporate governance. Okay. Nations with more robust corporate governance safeguards for minority shareholders have significantly bigger and more liquid capital markets. Okay. So once you protect especially minority shareholders, then these shareholders become more confident and will be more willing to invest in the stock market or capital market. That will make the capital market more liquid. Okay, if you're a player in Ghana Stock Exchange, you come to know, appreciate the issue of liquidity of capital markets. All right. Sometimes if you want to sell your shares, it's a problem because nobody is buying. Sometimes if you want to buy, those stocks are not available because nobody is selling and so on and so forth. Okay. So the GSE is very, very illiquid, right? In terms of your ability to sell or buy stocks is one of the problems. And it's coming because the number of participants on the market are quite few. So once people are sure that their interests will be protected, there are laws, and these laws are implemented whenever companies abuse their rules, then they will feel confident to invest in this capital market, and that will make the capital market bigger and more liquid. Okay. Then competition in capital markets and for product markets act as restraint on business behavior, supporting effective corporate governance in the process. So one other issue, when we talk about corporate governance, we have various stakeholders that play different roles and ensuring that companies are properly governed. One is through the capital market or investors. We just touched on that in the earlier point. Okay, so if they feel companies in your country are not properly governed, the smart thing they will do is not to invest in those markets. So it's a signal to the companies that probably they are not following the tenets of corporate governance. Customers can also help, okay, in ensuring that companies are properly governed by their decision to actually buy your product or not to buy. So the product markets as well can help. So apart from laws and regulations, other stakeholders like investors and customers can help in regulating the behavior of businesses. And this can lead to effective corporate governance in the process. Okay, so generally, everybody will benefit because if these stakeholders put pressure on business to behave well, that then helps in addressing all the needs of the other stakeholders of the company. Okay. Then the next obvious one is reduction in corruption, because there will be transparency and systems that fully disclose accounting and auditing practices. When this is in place, then corruption will be reduced to the barest minimum. Okay. Corporate governance can lead to the creation and enhancement of corporations' competitive advantage. As we realize from the capital market and the product market as well, if investors find that your company is properly being governed based on the tenets of good corporate governance, they will want to invest with your company. It will bring more money, either in the form of debt or equity, and that will help you to get an edge. Okay, from the perspective of customers, they will want to buy products from companies that are properly governed, and that also can provide you with a competitive edge. So companies that adhere to good corporate governance are more likely to experience competitive advantage. Okay. Next one says enables a company perform efficiently by preventing fraud and malpractices. We've explained that under the corruption issue. Provide protection to shareholders' interests. We've spoken about that much earlier. Enhance the valuation of an enterprise. So the value of the company will generally go up if shareholders and investors generally feel that the company adheres to the principles of good corporate governance. All right. Then finally, to lead to compliance of laws and regulations. As I indicated much earlier, at the heart of corporate governance is the compliance of laws, compliance with laws and regulations in your industry. Okay, so once companies adhere to the principles of corporate governance, you can be certain that laws and regulations and standards will be complied with. Okay, so that is that for the relevance of corporate governance. Any question, any comment before we move to the mechanisms of good corporate governance? The benefits, relevance of corporate governance. That's what we just discussed. Are you okay?
Yes, Prof.
Yes, Prof.
All right. Right. Let's move to the mechanisms of corporate governance. All right. So we've spoken about it generally. Yes, Mami Sewa. You said yes. So why is your hand up?
Just a little clarification. Please, do they audit board separately from the company?
No. So boards are supposed to provide, they also have a report kind of from the board chair about the performance of the company. But when it comes to the auditing takes place with regards to the performance of the company itself. Maybe there may be comments about the board composition, whether they have a board in place and so on and so forth. But as to how the board is governed, we have what is known as board evaluation. And normally it's the board itself that is supposed to evaluate itself and its performance. But when it is auditing, it's generally about the performance of the company itself. Okay. Gabriel. Hello. Gabriel, I saw your hand up. Oh, okay, Augustine.
Prof, that per your explanation doesn't mean that auditing is only limited to the management level.
So what I'm saying, you see, the auditing focuses on the decisions. Okay. When they come to audit, they audit the financial statement, they call for evidence. Some of the evidence will call for, say, they want to look at board approvals for some decisions. Okay, if you said some decision was taken at the board meeting, they may call for the general, whatever, the minutes of the board meeting, and probably they may want to look at. And what I'm trying to say is that generally they will take a bite at the board, but the focus of the audit will not be on the board. It will be on the activities, what has gone on, and some of the activities may move into the arena of the board. But it is not for them to give an opinion whether the board was effective or not. That will emanate from how the company has performed in terms of its financials. Do you get the point?
Well understood, Prof.
Yes. But the board itself undertake what is known as board evaluation. Okay.
So, Prof,
where they will evaluate their performance either as individual members. What did you bring on board? What was your contribution? And they'll also evaluate the performance of the entire board as to how they have performed. But when auditors come, they basically focus on the trails of the decisions, financial decisions and commitments that were made and so on. And they may make comments alongside what boards have done, but generally the focus is not on the performance of the board.